Okay, so this is a really cool release. I think you're seeing a bunch of new stuff. You're seeing, obviously, this is the jungle release, so I've got a lot of jungle elements. And I created a bunch of maps that are automatically linked together for you to have sort of an already made map adventure. This is you embark from your ship. There's a rowboat. You take it to shore, and you move through this jungle that has a bunch of different things inside of it, including an entire village now with thatched roofs and other things that will make it helpful for you when you're creating, this type of either jungle or island type of scenario. Now, what else is included is you can go from this jungle to essentially a dungeon that's accessible from the jungle. It's hidden underneath this tree. And inside that dungeon, you see the modular dungeon at work. This happens to be Aiko's dungeon. I thought it went well with the jungle motif. And we're just moving around looking through it, and you're seeing how I'm using a bunch of the different elements to essentially assemble this dungeon that's already made for you. Behind this really cool altar is a secret entrance to another downstairs area. And then the motif starts to change. You've got traps that drop you into different places, which I'll explain here in a little bit. But you've got essentially all the modular pieces at work in this. And you even got things which I'll also explain, which is just different ways of using creatively the different elements available to you to do some fun things like you see here in this level as well. So we're going to go through this, and there's some more things that you don't see in here. I'm going to explain what this level is, some of these new assets like this barge that have been introduced. And then something really fun, if you guys have used the one Parser Dungeon module, it's new. This is what it is. It creates automatically these really simple monochromatic dungeons. I just created some assets for these that let you throw, working torches, stairs, and other things into these, into these levels, and you can just really, really quickly create dungeons on the fly using both of these modules together. So with that, let's get into the walkthrough of the new release. First of all, you have basements, and all of the basements are in the Modular Town compendium, in the Actor prefab compendium. And you'll find all of them in here based on their names and then whether they're blank or they're dressed. So anything that you see here, blank or dressed, the blank ones, obviously you can drop other staircases in them, have them lead elsewhere, use other things from the Modular Town, or just use them for whatever storytelling that you want. They do all include multi-level token hotspots that are all pre-configured already with the stair journal entry. Remember, if you want to change it to GM only, you can do that, and then only the GM would be able to see and interact with the stair. So you can, with the hotspot, that way you can teleport your players for them. There are lights as well in everything. So these are pre-lit, and they're set to be lit no matter what the ambient light is. That way, as a something that's underground, they'll always be lit when your players go into it. And there are some of them that have special walls and terrain walls set up because of the dressing in there might, like in this case, things might block the light from getting to the back room. So hopefully you have fun with that. Of course, we also have this really cool thing that I love. It's Smuggler's Basement. You can link this from anywhere. Imagine it's just a really large basement, and this entire thing comes as a prefab that you can drag out. It's got this secret entrance here that is a secret that the GM has to open. And then you've got, the basic, weapons and things that you might find in a smuggler's den. And then this is new. This prefab is a barge. And this essentially is like a river barge. It is in your tactical folder called Vehicle, Boat, Barge. And it does have a vehicles region on it. So it will grab any players that you put on it, and it will move them around. Notice if there's a control token like you see on here with these crates, it'll move those crates around as well. Another prefab is the second crane. There's another crane that I provide in the docks, and this one is under tactical, and this crane will deploy as any other, and you can use control or shift to be able to turn it. And it does come with a vehicles attachment, so that it'll pick up For example, it'll pick up these crates if I swung it onto those crates, and it can move them around. But you may find some use with that elsewhere. The rest of these are part of the prefab, but you can delete them. It's like these crates, which I can move around because with my demos map here, I detached everything so they can be moved around. But you may have to turn on quick edit mode if you want to move things around, or delete these entirely and put something else here in this area. Part of this basement release is entrances to those basements. So a lot of my prefabs don't have staircases down. Some of them do, and you can absolutely use those to link into a basement. But if they don't, you have two options now. You have cellar entrances, which essentially go outside of a building, and they're kind of set to like butt up right against a building. And they come with your multi-level token regions and things like that. Of course, you'd have to turn on quick edit mode. If you want to code these anywhere particular, go to your drawing tools, and then you can give these, whoops, you have to make sure you select on, and then you can configure these to go wherever you want to. And you can configure them in scene as well, which I'll be using in my Vandalin update coming up soon. But you have different options there. And then you have these called trapdoors. And a trapdoor essentially works the same way, except it can go inside of a building. So a trapdoor fits within a square, and you can put it down inside of a building. For example, this building here, you could put a trapdoor there, for example. Maybe you hide that trapdoor until players find it. But remember that these are all configured for player interaction. So if you want to change that, you have to turn on quick edit mode, and you have to right click your thing and choose GM, GM only. That'll let you as the GM interact with these instead of just the players. Here's an example, which I just showed you, of one of these. What you may have to do, because of the way that different buildings are set up, is you may have to turn on quick edit mode for some of these, and you may have to adjust. Let me get this roof out of the way for a second. You may have to adjust exactly where this image lays, and if you hold down shift, you can put it exactly where you want to. Just something to keep in mind, so in case you find yourself trying to find just the right spot and it's not quite working. And then you may have to move it either up or down in the order, depending on if it's being covered by another image or not. But that's how you use those, essentially. Let me know if you guys like that new tool. I think it really creates the ability to do a lot with the town. I also didn't show you this earlier, but you have blood options. These can be deployed anywhere, and I've got them in small and large versions. If you just search for blood, they're in the tactical folder, and you have, again, small and large versions, and they can be rotated. And of course, you can change their size entirely. If you go to image, you can say, I want this only a third of the size. 0.3, 0.3 makes it really, really small. So just, or you can make it, twice as big. And now you've got a really, really big blood stain, in case you want to put a lot of blood around. Other things are, there's a bunch of new camp components, and this rowboat. This rowboat has a vehicles region on it as well, so it'll pick up your players and your tokens and move them. This is deployable. If you look up rowboat, oops, if we look up boat, actually, you see it's also called a vehicle inside of tactical. And then we've got these lean-tos and bedrolls. Lean-tos and bedrolls. If you look up lean-to, you'll see them all under tactical, and bedroll under tactical as well. This bedroll here and these two lean-tos have lighting built into them. So they've already got lanterns already lit and working. These are really useful in camping scenes and also in the dungeon in case you want to do some other kind of dungeon camping setup. Speaking of dungeon camping, I do have more camps that I've created. These are all just droppable camps. If you just search for camp inside of the dungeon decor items, then you'll find all those camps in there, plus the other ones that I've made. There's a really, really large camp, for example. And these come with lighting and whatnot. And these are just great for ad hoc battles that you set up. If you don't want any of these, or you don't want any of the underlying elements here, you can just pull these bedrolls out, these lean-tos. There's another tent from another release that's in tactical as well, and you can make your own sort of ad hoc camps that way. As part of the jungle release, I've got this empty hut. I'll be creating furnished versions of it, but I've also taken some of the marketplace stalls and I've given them thatched roofs as well. That way you have some more options when you're creating your modular village. And then these are pavilions. You can put any tokens or things underneath them, but they're meant to be just really flexible and from the top down, just give your town a better look for being an island town. The other parts of the jungle release are here. These are trees. Everything's got the wall height component set up. These will actually block movement. But these are all the small versions of each thing. There's also a large version of all of the trees. I didn't choose to do make all of the trees auto hide in the prefabs. If you want to do that, you just need to turn on, once you deploy it, you just need to turn on quick edit mode and right click it and then turn it to a roof. You'll notice there's actually two images. This one underneath it is just the shadow of the roof. But they were so small in form factor, I decided not necessarily to do that with everything. So anyway, so that's how those work. And these are the small versions. The very, very large ones are, I think, twice as big. And of course, you can put them together and essentially make giant walls of things. So as you've seen, and I'll walk you through some of the sample scenes, you can basically make a maze or path of whatever kind of jungle environment you want using these essential shapes in various sizes. And of course, we have the Watabou stuff from the one Parser Dungeon module that I love. It's monochromatic, and I just threw some. This is something I offer free through my free module. But in case you're a Patreon, you'll want access to these too, and not have more than one module installed. So that's why I included them in here. I do have this. One square away from the stair because this is an automatic stair. So if this token comes into contact with that region, it'll teleport the token and create issues for you. So again, if you want to code that stair, you just turn on quick edit and you can go to your drawings and then you can code this stair under multi-level to wherever you're trying to have it go. These other elements are actually not tiles. I just made them as tokens themselves. So this torch, which you can rotate if you hold down shift or control, has built-in lighting, of course, to it. And then this fire has a built-in fire noise and also light, but you can rotate that as any token. And then I'm rotating this, but you can hardly tell, and it's the pillar. If you want to find them, you can just search for Watabou inside of that's my free one. This is the dungeon element. So it comes with the dungeon module. And that's all of the major elements of the release. Let's jump into the sample scenes. So of course, you guys saw this. This is just the Watabou scene. I'm not going to show you how to use that module, but it essentially generates random dungeons based on certain flags and presets that you ask it to, and it will import it into Foundry with walls and doors. It's just a fantastic module, and of course the source of it, the Watabou stuff, is really great. And yeah, you just you drag elements in here that you'd want to, and then you can move them around and rotate them as you need to. So just a really easy way to make maps. Couple of things to mention here. This first scene for the jungle, it does have my my dark galleon parked or in dock. It's also got the rowboat here that's automatically parked. So one thing I wanted to show you, let's just create a quick scene here, and we'll give it a background image. And we'll use wilderness, terrains, ocean, and sand, and then we'll pick this blank ocean terrain. We'll save changes. And what I'll do here is I'm going to expand it out a little bit. Now that I've got my background set, I'm going to set it to 3400 by 3400, which is a standard that I use a lot. It's basically 34 by 34 squares that are 100 pixels each. And then what I'm going to do is go into my tile browser, back into ocean and sand. And let's say I want a shoreline. Let's see how big this is. Let's say I want my shoreline on this side of the map. Well, that's how you do that. You just drag these components in. Maybe I want the shoreline to be along the edge or the side of the map. Can move that off just a little bit. And as long as I have it set to 80, because these are all 80, these are supposed to be as small in size as possible. But now I've got a shoreline that I can park a bunch of boats at. And likewise, if this was a desert map, I could use that same tile I just placed. And I could have it more like this, where now I'm primarily looking at a beach with just a little bit of shoreline on it. So that's what these are for. I'm not sure that you would ever use this, but it's a thing. It's a spot. And then here's a spot of desert if you ever need to drop a spot of sand somewhere. But that's how you use these components in here to make custom shorelines. Other things about this scene, or the last thing about this scene, is that I do have teleporters in here. So this is a multi-level token zone. It's coded to take you to the next area automatically as soon as a player steps into it. If you want to make that not automatic, you'll have to look at my multi-level token tutorial to see how that works. But that will essentially teleport tokens automatically to this region here. And once they're in that region, they can start walking through the jungle, and they have things to discover. There's, for example, this grave up here, in case you want that to be something, or you can just delete it. They have this arrow tower. This arrow tower is set up with a special zone that sets your player's elevation. So once they step into the arrow tower, it'll set their elevation, I think, to 20 feet. And that will put them above a lot of these walls that kind of block vision. And so they have not only tactical advantage while they're up here, but they can actually see further while they're in this arrow tower. Of course, I've also put my automatic traps in here, a couple of them at least. You need to make sure that my macros are all imported into your world for these traps to work effectively. But then you've got this camp over here. And by the way, everything in here, it's all controlled, or the control tokens are all out in the edges. And if you hover over them, you can often see, like this is this wagon here that's underneath this tree. That's the wagon's control token, but you can just hover over them to see what these things are. You can always get rid of these canopies if you don't want them for your gameplay. But then you've also got over here another hidden sort of little pavilion area where you can put some NPCs, maybe a trading post, something like that. Once your players make it through this area, they come to this teleportation zone. That will automatically bring them to here. And they can start making their way through this area of the jungle. You've got an area that's hard to get to, but they can make it back here, and you can put things back in this area. You've also got some supplies for some reason hanging out back here that they have to sort of meander to. And then, of course, you've got this, this hermit sort of home here that's set up in the middle. And then you've got two teleportation zone options at this point. This one to the south leads to the village, and this one leads to the dungeon that you saw earlier. The dungeon entrance is on the other side, so they would teleport into here and then somehow make it across this chasm, and that leads them to the dungeon entrance over here. This is an automatic teleportation zone as well. Again, change it if you don't want them to automatically use it. There are some other things back here that they could find. They could make their way back behind these rocks. And at the moment, I've got a skeleton lying there. You can decide if you want something else to lie there. That skeleton and everything else in this map, again, are just controlled by these control tokens over here. So there's rocks, there's the bones. So if I deleted this, it would delete that skeleton that it's attached to. And I used quick edit mode in order to move all of these controls out to the edges here. Some of them I left in as well. And then if we go to the village, you have this palisade wall. You've got this fence that can be locked. This is an automatic zone. You may want to make that manual in case you think your players are actually going to accidentally going to step back in there. But inside of the walls, you've got, essentially this is just a modified arrow tower, like the one you saw earlier, but with a thatched roof. This one has the same set elevation macro that will put your players up at a tactical advantage here, or maybe the NPCs have a tactical advantage. And you've got some other things that you've seen. Other components of the modular town have been added here, like some of the stalls. Here's the auction block. Not sure what this might be in this town, but thought it would give you some inspiration. This, of course, is an empty hut, which you can put objects into. And if you have Forgotten Adventures, for example, you could throw in a hammock or something like that. And then you've got some of these pieces that you saw as I was demoing. And you can drop these anywhere, drop them on the beach, that sort of thing. Once you get into this dungeon, I think you saw everything. It probably makes sense. You can change this dungeon any way you want. These are all part of Aiko's BVT set. So all of these tiles that say BVT, those are all the ones that make up this particular dungeon, at least at this level. And then I just added some prefabs. This is the throne that I had built. These are some of the jungle prefabs just added in here. You can rearrange, obviously, anything that you want. All of these multi-level token regions are set, and I've started to code them as green if it's able to be interacted with the user. I'm definitely not consistent because I just started doing it, but if you ever see it as green, that's an indication that a player can interact with it. And this also is set to be a secret door that only the GM can open and close. This level, obviously, you enter here under the same motif, and then you have a motif transition. The idea is that these smugglers have taken over this underground area and take advantage of its scary sort of reputation to have their smuggling going on. They've implemented traps down here. These traps, this particular trap drops a user automatically into this area. This you might put like some kind of nefarious beast or something like that, or maybe it's just a holding tank or a prison for players, an oubliette. If they go this way, they have to go through this gauntlet of tricks. And I've set this up so that if you wanted to take advantage, and this is just to give you some ideas of what you can do with these systems. But the idea here is that if a player successfully steps onto one of these stones, that the stone would, the first stone here, the one on the left, would disappear. So you can drag it off the screen, or maybe it drops significantly. And then the next person who steps on this, it would disappear entirely. You can just delete these control tokens, or you can drag them off the screen. But the idea is just to show you that you can create some interactive elements to make it fun for your players as they navigate something like that. And then, of course, they ultimately end up in the smuggler's operation itself. And this is where you can see some of the stuff that you saw in the demo. Again, all of this stuff is controllable. You can move it around. You can hold shift if you want to get it in a precise location. Just be careful with your barge and with this little piece here, because they will pick up tokens, including control tokens that they run across. So if you don't want them to do that, either delete the prefab entirely, or you can delete the diagram over the barge, and the barge itself is still intact inside of your actor compendiums. Here's the barge, and I can drag it out anytime I want, fully made and whole. In case you ever make some changes, you don't have to worry about destroying something. So that's basically it. Hopefully you guys have fun with this particular release and doing jungle themes and all kinds of stuff in dungeons, and just having that much more available to you. Coming up in the next release will be a lot of town releases, particularly releasing the entire town of Phandalin, or at least a representation of the town of Phandalin using an entirely modular system. I think you guys will really enjoy it. I have a lot of fun stuff hidden in there for you guys to discover. But that's it. Let me know in the comments how you like this stuff. If there are any ideas that inspires you to have me create or the community create, by all means, let me know, and have fun making your maps.